Okay, so in this video, we are going to focus on the first version of the PPP theory, which is absolute PPP, absolute power purchasing parity. So this theory, as every theory in the world, especially in social science, has its assumptions. And we need to be critical about the assumptions. Um, the assumptions about this theory are three, and here are the three assumptions. And you will see that the story that I told you also has these three assumptions. So first assumption is that it is this exactly the same product, right? The same product is being sold in two different markets, but it is exactly the same product. So in the story that I told you, it was the same burger, same taste, same size, everything, same quality. Number two, this theory assumes that there are no restrictions on sale. That's why I told you that you can move freely between Mexico and the US because you live in the border and you have like a superpower just to jump the border. So that was the second assumption. And the third assumption is that there are no transportation costs related to this, right? So it means that that's why I say that you just live in the border, so you just walk, I don't know, 10 meters to cross the border and you could buy the burger in the US. So this will be the third assumption. If you think about these three assumptions, do you think that these assumptions are realistic? Do you think that it is possible that there is one good or there is one context under these three assumptions work? Of course not, right? I would say 99.9999% of the time it doesn't work because it is very difficult that one product can be exactly the same in two places. Usually you have restrictions to move, and especially you have costs, right? Transportation cost, either you as a buyer or the whoever is selling this. But a few years, I think in the 80s or 70s, uh, a British newspaper called The Economist found or discovered or suggested that the context under which this can work is if you analyze a Big Mac burger. Maybe you had this idea when I was telling you the story about the hamburger. So why a Big Mac? Well, first, the economists say that Big Macs are exactly the same everywhere in the world, and they are 99% okay, right? I think it's almost the same taste anywhere in the world, so that's one thing, right? The second thing is that technically there are no restrictions on sale, so you can buy a Big Mac as long as you can stay on that country. So if you can buy a Big Mac in Mexico or in the US, or if you can be in there, you can buy the Big Mac. It's not like you are buying oil or something like that. And finally, this third assumption about transportation cost, well, the economist says that because McDonald's is selling so many burgers around the world, if you divide the transportation costs of McDonald's in the world over the time, the number of burgers that they sell, the price that you can allocate to each burger is like 0.01 or something like that, 1 cent, right? Because they sell so many burgers that their transportation cost per burger is like 1 cent or something like that. So they say that if there is one context under which will work is the Big Mac. So let's assume that they are somehow correct. So let's do the analysis using price of burgers. So the formula that comes from this, from the PPP, absolute PPP theory, is this one. It says that the price of the burger in the US will determine the price of the burger in Mexico. You only have to multiply the price of the burger in the US times or divide it. It depends on, the thing that we practice on first partial, right? Divide or multiply. But let's assume that we multiply times the spot rate. So imagine that you have that the price of the burger in the US is $5 and the spot rate is 20. So you will have to multiply 5 times 20 and you will get 100 pesos. So if that is correct, you are in balance, right? According to this theory, the price will be the fair price. Let's make some practice about this. It is, I think, sorry, I forgot to tell you something. If we use some math, if we do some math with this, And we want to isolate the spot rate. S means the spot rate, right? The exchange rate, the price of pesos per dollar or whatever it is. So if you want to isolate this, the exchange rate, you have to move this to the other side. And how will you move it? If you remember your math courses, you will have to send it dividing, right? If this is multiplying on the left, it will move as a division on the right. So the formula in the end looks like this. If you want to calculate the exchange rate, you should divide the price of the good in the home country over the price of the good in the foreign country. So let's do an exercise. I wanted to move until this slide. So in this exercise, it says that the price of the burger is $5.28. And the price of the burger in Mexico is 48 pesos. So it is asking us, what is the exchange rate? Because we are using the PPP absolute theory to calculate this, we will call to this exchange rate the PPP exchange rate, right? It's just the theoretical exchange rate. So we are going to use this formula. It is super simple. I think it's more complicated to understand the concept than to do the exercise. To do the exercise, it is very simple. Let me erase them. So I think you can see that I'm on Excel, right? Okay. So the home country in this example would be, let's assume that we are in the US, but in the end, it doesn't matter. I will give you a tip. So let's assume that the home price, more than the home country, home price will be home price. It is what did I say? $5.28. Okay. And the foreign price would be, what was that? 48 pesos. Okay. So that's what we have so far. We have the price in the US and we have the price in Mexico. So if we want to divide, if we want to calculate the PPP exchange rate, we will have to use the formula that I told you. And the formula that I told you is home over foreign, right? So it will be 5.28 over 48. And this is what? And here, this is super important. What is this 0.11, but 0.11 what? So if you see, you divided 5 over 48. So that means you divided dollars over pesos. So the answer should be dollars over pesos. Are we okay until here? That is if we assume that the dollar is the home country. Let's assume the opposite. Let's assume that the home is Mexico. So home price is Mexico and foreign price is the US. So if it is like this, you just have to divide it the other way around, 48 over 5.28. So in the end, the price will be pesos over dollar. Be very careful. Why pesos on top? Because the division was 48 over 5. Okay, I hope this is clear. If you didn't get it, you can backward the video a little bit and you can also ask me on Zoom. So just be very careful. In the end, it doesn't really matter. I don't have to tell you what's the home or what is foreign. You only have to remember that, well, I think I will usually tell you what's home or what is foreign, but you don't have to worry that much. Just remember that this PPP exchange rate, you have to be very careful on the rates that you're using or the currencies that you're using. If you divided 48 over 5, you should write pesos over dollar, right? Just keep that logic. So if we are okay until here, I'm happy. Now this is the last part of this example about absolute PPP. I think I will write in here because this is the topic, absolute PPP. So finally, the last thing that I can ask you. We already said that this number, 9.09, is theoretical, right? It's not the market. It's only a calculation that we did. According to that theory, this should be the price, okay? So imagine that that the real or the market, I can write it, the real exchange rate or the market exchange rate is maybe, I haven't seen it, but maybe it's 20.5 pesos over dollar. So my question is this more expensive than the theoretical price or not? So if you conclude that it is more expensive, you should say that it is overpriced, right? That the market, it's overpriced. Why? Because the market is asking you for 20 pesos per dollar, but the theory says that it should be 9. So with this, I am happy about your analysis about this. This is kind of the practice. It's super easy, right? I think you only have to be careful when you divide and everything. Let me go back to the presentation because I just want to point out a few things, because now maybe you will say, okay, I now I understand that if the price of one important good changes and all of these assumptions work, the price, I can calculate the price. But in real life, that doesn't work because the assumptions, these assumptions are not realistic, right? So maybe you will say, you made me lose 20 minutes watching your video or 10 minutes. But the thing is that this absolute PPP theory is the core of everything else. This is kind of like the first thing that you need to understand. And then we are going to complicate the theories a little bit more. This theory is from the 60s or 50s, and we are going to build more theories around this, or to learn the theories that are around this. So first one person discovered this, and then more people started building into that theory. So finally, if you ask me, what's the importance of learning absolute PPP? Well, I can tell you two things. First, it is the core. That's what I said earlier. It's the first step that you need to understand, because I can't or I shouldn't teach you the complicated theory if I don't teach you the simple theory. That's the first thing. But the second thing is that this theory works under specific scenarios, that there's a lot of research about this. And this theory works in some scenarios, like for instance, it says that this theory works sometimes if, or no, not sometimes, it usually works when you have two economies that are very different from each other, like maybe I don't know, Venezuela and Chile. They're very different. They behave completely different. And the second thing that they say is that if you look on the long term, like maybe 10 or 20 years, you can more or less predict the exchange rate in that case. Of course, it's not the most useful thing. I don't recommend you to use this theory to do any calculations in your job, but it is maybe the first thing that you should learn, and the first thing that you can consider about this. And the point of everything is that you understand that inflation and changes on prices of goods affect the exchange rate, right? That's the main objective of all of this. Now, the next video, I will show you how the relative version of the PPP works. That is like the second layer. Like if this is the core absolute PPP, the second layer is the relative PPP. So I will finish the video here, and let's continue on the next slide.